Good evening, everyone. It's Friday night, June 4th, 2021, and this is Red Star Report. For tonight's Voices for the California Nation theme, I'd like to talk about a California independence activism truth that goes like this. Any California-based activism that would try to fix America, but would reject California independence, will accept failure as a viable option for 40 million Californians. Over the last few years, particularly as part of the California independence movement, I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of very passionate and dedicated people from a lot of different activist organizations focused on a lot of different issues. The California independence movement is known for this, as we support organizations that fight for what we hold as California values: human rights, social justice, environmental protection, economic equality, and so on. Basically, the things we as Californians expect in a future California nation that the USA has failed to deliver. And I'll be speaking more on this in future Red Star Report episodes. Anyway, as time passed, I've been a member of a number of individual organizations and found myself affiliated with a few others. Some of them I've even actually joined, rather than being just handed a t-shirt and told to stand over there and hold a sign. Good times. And yeah, I know this experience is nothing new to anyone involved in grassroots activism. The very core of grassroots activism is often just getting enough people together in a place at the right time to get the message out, quote, end quote. Because that's the key, isn't it? Getting the message out. Much of the time, activists will do this to the exclusion of all else. Passion for the cause, single-minded focus on the issue. How can anything else matter when there is corruption that must be challenged, or an injustice to drag out into the cold, hard light of day so that things can finally change? But that's the problem, isn't it? For some reason, America just doesn't want to be fixed, even when most Americans think it should be. So activism goes on, year after year, always following the same cycle. It starts with a fresh outrage, a mass shooting, police brutality, a murder, or an environmental disaster, something that energizes people to organize on an issue. Then there's a lot of protests, demonstrations, speeches, pundit chatter, TV interviews, and rallies about that issue, where for some reason there's always opposition to the issue that oddly gets more funding, more attention, more legitimacy than it deserves from the media and, of course, federal lawmakers. This is followed by months or even years of federal investigation and haggling, negotiation, weakening legislation on the issue by pulling its teeth behind closed doors, yada, 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 you know how this goes. All this ending in a predictably dull yet self-righteous media event where DC politicians, who never really gave a shit about the issue in the first place because the donor class isn't giving out checks, congratulate themselves for either signing or defeating a piece of legislation that, when all was said and done, was never going to be more than an incremental change or a symbolic gesture anyway. And from the start was something that wouldn't upset their donor class and take just long enough by looking just sincere enough to wait out the predictably short American attention span. And I've seen this same sad bit of political theater played out over and over and over again for decades. So forgive me if I say watching the politically slow fiddling while Rome burns is and remains one of my personal reasons for becoming a California rebel that I am today. America never really gets anything truly done while Californians want to fix the nation, save the planet, and create a better society for everyone. So California activists and even movements eventually burn out. not from lack of passion or dedication, but from the simple exhaustion of California's unstoppable force, always dashing its hopes on the American government's immovable object. All that effort, all those marches, all the rallies and events can work to bring an issue to the U.S. consciousness. Unfortunately, the U.S. government knows that all U.S. activism has a measurable half-life in America's corporate media cycle. And on most issues, America can just ignore California activists because most Americans just don't care, or worse, hate Californians anyway. Don't California my America. Sound familiar? Many states put it on t-shirts because that's America, and it's the kind of country Americans want. And the kind of country Americans are willing to rob, cheat, steal, and, in some cases, even kill to preserve. So, speaking as a California independence activist, I need to ask you, maybe a different tactic is in order here. Activism and grassroots politics can do more work here, at home, in California, than they can in the United States. Just look at the track record. Same-sex marriage, marijuana legalization, gun control, environmental protection, and even to a degree, police reform. It does happen here in California. Putting the slow evolving train wreck that is becoming the United States aside, there are 40 million Californians. California and Californians are already recognized around the world as leaders in innovation and technology. Even with our problems, California is the 5th largest economy on the planet, and a free and independent California's values already align with the principles of human rights, liberty, justice, the things that America pretends to back, but seems to be working very, very hard to abandon. So I'll say it again with all love. Any California-based activism that would try to fix America, but would reject California independence, will accept failure as a viable option for 40 million Californians. If Californians can't fix America, and if America will only reject California values, then maybe we should consider California independence as a perfectly viable option. Thank you. This has been Voices for the California Nation. Shankar Singham has the night off tonight. So, next up, Talking Points. Tonight on Talking Points, I'd like to begin with a COVID-19 update. As we speak, California is just 10 days away from opening up much of its COVID-19 restrictions. Statewide, 54% of Californians have received at least one dose of vaccine. And fully vaccinated data among residents of Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco, Santa Clara, San Mateo, Long Beach, and of course Marin County show more than 67% of residents are now at least partially vaccinated. So celebrate. Unfortunately, across much of the state's rural areas, fewer than 45% of the residents are getting vaccinated, with officials battling reluctance on the part of residents to get their shots, which leaves them more exposed to the coronavirus than in more urban parts of California where case rates continue to freefall. Talking point. Fucking hypocrites. Why is it that people who scream the loudest about personal responsibility are always the last to take any? I mean, this is mind-blowing. The same people who throw hissy fits about California's COVID-19 lockdowns are now the same ones refusing to get the shots that will do more than anything else to open up California and prevent further lockdowns. Hate to break it to you, Karen, but COVID is still out there. And these anti-vax stupidities leave a lot of Californians vulnerable if the rural parts of our nation state remain potential outbreak risks because some rugged individualists are afraid of needles. Because that's really it, isn't it? You hide behind political statements and drug company conspiracy theories, but since you keep reminding everybody that it's your boy Trump and the joys of laissez-faire capitalism that we need to thank for these vaccines, how can you have any other possible excuse? You should have been in line, the first ones in line when the shots were rolled out, particularly when everyone knows that the vaccines are the surest bet to end Californians' freedom-robbing COVID lockdowns, which is what you said you hated in the first place. Please, really, for your sake, and for the sake of all Californians, go get your shots. For tonight's talking point number 2, in yet another fine example of how elections stolen in other states, like 2020's Bush v. Gore in Florida, and how they can have long-term consequences for California, on Friday night, a George W. Bush appointee, federal judge Roger T. Benitez of the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of California in San Diego, overturned the state's 3-decade-old assault weapons ban. By the way, if you don't remember, this is the same Cuban-born, ultra-right, NRA-backed Trump supporter, federal judge Roger T. Benitez, that overturned California's 10-round magazine limit back in March 2019. In his 90-plus page extreme partisan decision, Judge Benitez wrote, "What should be a muscular constitutional right, and whether a state can force a gun policy choice that impinges on that right with a 30-year-old failed experiment," and Judge Benitez continues, "government is not free to impose its own new policy choices on American citizens where constitutional rights are concerned. And the firearms banned under these laws are not bazookas, howitzers, or machine guns, but rather fairly ordinary, popular, modern rifles. Like a Swiss Army knife, the AR-15 assault rifle is a perfect combination of home defense weapon and homeland defense equipment." Statements taken right out of popular NRA Second Amendment propaganda materials. Talking point. Gavin Newsom called the ruling a direct threat to the public safety and the lives of innocent Californians. He commented, "The fact that this judge compared the AR-15, a weapon of war that's used on the battlefield, to a Swiss Army knife completely undermines his credibility, and this decision is a slap in the face to the families of those who've lost loved ones to this weapon." He's right on this. Since 1989, when the assault weapons ban was passed to basically combat gang shootings in the 80s, California has had one of the lowest crime rates in the USA. And in 2019, California ranked 42nd out of the 50 states for gun-related deaths by the Center for American Progress. California has 30 days to appeal this. But let's get real. This is fucking inconceivable as anything but modern American political stupidity being forced on Californians by an untouchable federal judge with a MAGA agenda. Because obviously this wasn't done for the good of Californians. At a time when Californians are just about to come out of the depressing isolation of the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown, an NRA ass-kissing judge thinks it's a Make America Great Again idea to make it easier for nut jobs, fascist assholes, and so forth to intimidate and murder Californians? Because the American reality in 2021 is that is what an AR-15 is for. So yes, this is the part of the talking point where I say California needs independence because America keeps forcing us into political bullshit we don't want or need. But sorry to say it, I don't know whether we California rebels should write letters to Sacramento or run off to the gun store and arm up, or both. Because very little effective opposition from the American left, the American right is systematically destroying democracy. And many of them seem hell-bent on a violent and tragic ending to the USA story. So, independence or submission? I'm not even sure. And that sets up our third talking point for the evening. We seem to have a running theme going now. California gets screwed by U.S. churches and the Supreme Court. This week, or last week I should say, settlements in two so-called religious liberty cases involving restrictions on large gatherings, which included churches that California had to impose sanctions on during the coronavirus pandemic to prevent superspreader events, resulted in permanent U.S. injunctions prohibiting California from taking such necessary public health actions ever again, while settlements forced Californians to pick up attorney fees for over $2 million. California lost the argument in court that the state of California can't treat churches any different than secular businesses during a lethal pandemic after an unprecedented 3 trips to the Supreme Court in a 1-year period. The Supreme Court ignored the public safety and general practicality aspects of the case in favor of the First Amendment religious freedom argument brought by legal representatives for the churches, resulting in the decision that stated, churches are essential for different reasons, and the permanent injunction of these cases uphold and protect one of the most cherished principles of our republic, the free exercise of religion. And restrictions on churches cannot be more severe than restrictions on retail, arguing that churches were just as essential as grocery stores. Where Governor Newsom and California advocates had argued over the need to put the health and well-being of Californians first. Talking point. One of the best things about California independence is the opportunity to write a new constitution. One that leaves out obsolete entitlements to fuzzy-wigged slave owners, religious zealots, and the financial elite. The very idea that California is out $2 million real live dollars because a house of superstition was inconvenienced by not being allowed to shill fantasy for coin is ridiculous. Gotta ask, how is a church essential? You walk in with nothing and you walk out with nothing. Unlike your neighborhood grocery store where people go for food. I know, some people live for church, but in the end, churches are basically a form of live entertainment. A theater that provides a show with a common meeting place for its fans, which during a pandemic creates a very real public health crisis for real, live, living Californians. Either way, $2 million is a hard reminder that in an independent California, the separation of church and state and the recognition that the practical and the spiritual need to be equally weighed is a solid argument for the future. That's Talking Points for this week. As always, check out our website, www.redstarreport.com. Transcripts for Talking Points will be posted there. Also be sure to subscribe to our Red Star Report YouTube channel. Go find our Red Star Report Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, etc., because if you want a real California Independence Movement media group, it's all about the algorithms. Our thanks to you and all our Red Star Rebels for watching. Have a great weekend. We are Red Star Report.